been a while. In case you forgot, my name is Mr. 96. In my last episode of this series, I mentioned how the start of a new decade meant that the 2000s have started to become retro. And since that period of time is officially 2 decades ago, I thought it was only right that the year I chose for my annual 2000s Top 10 list would be the year that started it all.
Say my name, no one is a
2000 was a very strange year for the pop culture landscape. One thing I've stated in the past is that music cannot be summed up by arbitrary decades, so while the music here was huge in the year 2000, it has way more in common with 1999 than 2009. Obviously, I was just 4 in 2000, so I can't comment on what pop culture was like from personal experience, but from what I can tell, 2000 was basically the watered-down sequel to 1999. And when I say that, I don't mean that 2000 was a bad year, not at all. I'm just saying that pop music this year was very much similar in style than 1999. But since 1999 was one of the greatest years in pop music history, the follow-up was inevitably going to be a bit of a drop-off. Even so, most of the bad stuff wasn't even really that stupid or rage-inducing. Other than a few select songs, most of what you'll see in this list are just boring and forgettable. Here are the guidelines. The song must have charted on the 2000 Year in Hot 100, and it could not have been released later than August of 2000. Also, if the song was released before September of 1999, it could not be on the 1999 Year in Hot 100. Once again, I apologize for the 3-month break, but I'm back now, and Mr. 69 is back on piano as we go back to the start of the millennium with the top 10 worst hit songs of 2000. I don't think people realize just how far back 2000 is. Not only is it literally 20 years ago, but 2000 was also the end of the Clinton administration. God damn. Even with the new millennium, the first entry on this list is actually going to be from a very popular and iconic artist of the 20th century. A lot of you may be surprised by this pick since it isn't one of those obviously terrible songs, but it's one that gets worse with each listen.
Doesn't matter what your friends are telling you, doesn't matter what my family's saying too.
Aesthetically, it doesn't sound too bad at first. It has a very mandolin-like Asian sound, and it comes off as very mellow, especially in the verses. But once I started paying attention to the chorus, the cracks started to show a bit. The message is a nice one of not judging people by appearances, but the lyrics sort of come off as faux deep. Doesn't really matter what the eye is seeing, 'cause I'm in love with the inner being. Oh yeah, this song was also part of the soundtrack for Nutty Professor 2, so if you thought that line didn't match the tone of the song, now you have an answer. With all that being said, I thought this song was a bit too fake meaningful for the kind of song it was, and a tiny bit annoying. Until the rest of the song made it very annoying. The song is officially listed as 4 minutes 18 seconds, but it honestly feels like 8 minutes 14 seconds because the last minute of the song is just the entire chorus played 3 times, key change and all. Also, Janet singing nutty 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 in her breathy voice gets really old really fast. I've seen critics consider this a top 10 Janet song, but I have to disagree. The music had potential, but the lyrics and repetitive nature made this get on my nerves. Let's move on. One of the most popular shows of the 2000s was American Idol, and if there was anyone on that show who stood out, it wasn't any of the singers, no. It was judge and record executive Simon Cowell. Nowadays, we know Simon Cowell as the British asshole judge on every reality show who signed and created artists from said shows like One Direction and Fifth Harmony. However, he didn't become a recurring judge for no reason. Before his reality show fame, his biggest success was signing a successful Irish boy band known as Westlife. They only had one hit in America, but I can see why it was popular here. The early 2000s were the perfect time to make easy listening ballads of any genre, so these bland white boys from Ireland fit right in.
I wanna know whoever told you I was letting go.
This entry is going to be fairly short as I don't think I need to say much. These guys have to be the most boring boy band I've ever heard. I've listened to some bad boy bands before, but I at least understood their appeal to an extent, even if it wasn't for me. These guys, no clue.
Just you and I'm never gonna say goodbye.
Westlife sings these slow-tempo, flavorless songs that never seem to generate any sense of fun or enjoyment, and here's the thing, I don't actually hate boy band ballads on principle. To my surprise, I actually enjoyed Back Here by BB Mac, which was also a hit in 2000. Hell, just later that year, the Backstreet Boys would release Shape of My Heart, which is one of their best songs ever. In an era where boy bands were at their peak, we didn't need Westlife. In fact, when I do my best list of 2000, I'm going to talk about a couple more deserving boy bands. The only reason I could see someone loving this band is either A, they were so in love with the guys that they didn't care about the music quality, or B, they're an Irish fan who just wants to rep the homeland. I know these guys were mainly popular in the UK, but to my British viewers that make up 4% of my audience, could you please explain to me why people adored the band who made flat cardboard like this?
You're flying without wings.
At least this didn't get popular here. One song was already too much.
All over again.
There are many acts who you think are one-hit wonders, but actually turn out not to be. For example, you remember these guys, right? Yeah, the Far East movement were those guys who made Like a G6 back in 2010. Considering how irrelevant those guys have been since then, I thought for sure they would be one-hit wonders, but they ended up having a second hit the next year with Ryan Tedder. What I'm trying to say is that even for acts with multiple hits, one song can still overshadow the rest of their discography, especially if your later hits pale in comparison to the first.
Oh, it's alright. Oh, let's go somewhere and get it on tonight.
I'm sure all of you recognize Montel Jordan. If you don't, I'm sure you recognize his biggest hit from 1995 because it's the song everybody thinks of when they hear this guy.
This is how we do it.
Like you, I was also surprised to see that he had more than one hit. In fact, he had more than a few through the late 90s. But if his hit from 2000 is any indication, he was probably better off being a one-hit wonder. First off, I'll admit that the music itself doesn't sound that bad. It's got a bit of a relaxing R&B atmosphere that's good in theory, but the real issues with the song are the lyrics and Montel Jordan himself.
Why can't she be like you? So I'm scheming.
The song is about how Jordan is cheating on his girl at the club. Now, many songs in history have been made about cheating on someone, but oftentimes the artist has the self-awareness to recognize that cheating is, guess what? Bad. With this song, there's no caveat or reasonable justification behind it. He's just cheating on her for no good reason.
You were all I want, girl. She's a chicken.
As a result, I'm just listening to some mild, milquetoast tropical sounding tune about how it's okay for this guy to be a total douchebag. He could have said that the relationship was sour or that she was cheating on him, but no. We're supposed to buy that he's completely justified because the girl he met at the club was mega hot. Plus, am I supposed to believe that this song is such a jam that I'd give him a pass? Even in the same year, Candy Burst did the topic much better. Granted, cheating on someone because they're cheating on you does not make you the better person, but at least there was some attempt at justification. In fact, let's go to the latter half of 2000 when Shaggy would release his iconic cheating song, It Wasn't Me.
But she got me on the counter. Wasn't me.
Yeah, everyone talks about the part where Shaggy advises you to say it wasn't me, even in the face of clear evidence, but if you actually listen to the full song, Rick Rock tells Shaggy at the end that his advice was complete bullshit.
I've been listening to your reason, it makes no sense at all.
That's right, one of the most iconic cheating songs of the 21st century was smart enough to remind people that cheating is bad. Infidelity aside, Montel Jordan does not get me pumped up as a performer. Even in his most famous hit, it was the killer New Jack Swing beat that helped complement his rather mellow style. So if he thinks this low-key wisp of a tune is supposed to get me on board with him, he should have stayed a one-hit wonder.
Let's go somewhere and get it on tonight.
I tend to have a low tolerance for child performers, mostly because a lot of them aren't that good. Hell, even for teenagers, there's a very exceptional few who can make a song you take seriously. For this next entry, I actually recognize the name of the artist since he sang the hook of Kiss Me Through the Phone in 2009, so I initially had moderate expectations, until I realized 2000 meant he was 9 years younger. Now, I was prepared to hate this going in since most of the time kid singers suck, if I'm being blunt. But the more I listen to it, I think he has a decent delivery for someone his age.
If
Actually, is this bad at all? I'm starting to think that this song might be good. Ah, there it is. Yeah, once the chorus kicks in, the production just absolutely goes to shit. Hell, they even had me for a second before it all came crashing down. It starts off kinda surprising when you hear this kid deliver a decent R&B melody, only for the track to suddenly pivot away from it and remind you that he's just a child. What, letting a kid sing an actual love song with competent R&B production in a year where R&B was huge? Pfft, please, we need to throw in some choppy bleeps and bloops for the kids to think that overstuffed beats means fun and exciting. To tell you the truth, I can see the talent within a young Sammy, it's just that the song wouldn't let him do his thing and had to call his age into attention. Here's the thing, being young doesn't inherently mean you suck. The Jackson 5 were great, JoJo was great, but the problem with most content aimed at kids is that it's made by adults who have zero idea of what kids actually listen to. When a young act has a noticeable talent, recognize it and maximize its potential. Don't just settle for Nickelodeon garbage. One thing I quickly found out about music in 2000 was that R&B and country dominated the year. I was expecting to hate a lot of the country from this list, but to my surprise, most of it wasn't that bad. In fact, a lot of them were pretty alright. Even the ones I didn't enjoy as much were at least inoffensively mediocre to where I could forget about them. And while it may not be my favorite genre, I at least have enough respect for country to know when one of its big hits is just artificial pop garbage. This is The Way You Love Me by Faith Hill. Upon first listen, this may sound like a watered down advertisement jingle for your local pharmacy, but upon repeated listens, you'll realize that it actually sounds like a watered down remix of an advertisement jingle for your local pharmacy.
If I could grant you one wish.
Normally I'd just give something like this a 4 out of 10 and move on, but sadly, that isn't even the worst part.
There's nowhere else I'd rather be.
Is she even saying?
There's nowhere else I'd rather be.
Drives me wild? How can she possibly mean that when she sounds like a robotic voice modulator that glitched out during the recording process? Ugh, I just can't see how anyone, even country fans, could accept this as decent pop music. This is the same year Faith Hill released Breathe, which ended up being the #1 song on the 2000 Billboard Year in Hot 100 despite the fact that it only peaked at #2 on the weekly charts. Frankly, I'm sure 90% of Americans remember Smooth by Santana, the iconic hit that should have been #1 on the year-end charts, way more than they remember Breathe. But if she was apparently that popular, I would have expected her other big single to at least sound passable.
Either way you love me.
But as far as I can tell, good old Merca just really loved this CBS shit over actual tunes, and that I do not get. Say what you will about mumble rap, at least it has an actual audience. Considering I was only a preschooler during the year 2000, I never actually heard many classic hit songs that others consider iconic. Take this one for example. From what I can gather, this song was inescapable if you were listening to music that year, and I can totally see why. It's an over-the-top and dramatic piece about this guy's fetish for thongs. On the other side, I can totally see why some may also dislike it. It's stupid, and at no point does it try to be anything more than that. But even if you're not a fan of this kind of horn dog music, at least it's better than this guy trying to be sincere.
Bright lights, fancy restaurant.
Oh my god, am I supposed to take this overwrought singing seriously? I understand 2000 was a popular time to make boring ballads, but this is just hemming it up to embarrassingly ridiculous levels.
Even though it seems I have everything, I don't wanna be alone, that fool.
Even lyrically, it's just cliche R&B schlock about how he has all the money in the world, but none of that means anything without you, babe. Yeah, I've heard this a million times. What do you offer for us to take you seriously?
Your perfume, your sexy lingerie.
Speaking of incomplete, the music could have really added some spice or interesting harmonies to make it sound less boring. Even for a ballad, the Backstreet Boys made a way better incomplete than you, and that was during their adult rock phase in 2005. I can see how a song like Cisco's could get popular in 2000, but it has nothing worth calling it special other than it was sung by the Thong Song guy. In case I'm coming off as too vague in my analysis, let me read a YouTube comment I found under the music video. She came home like, bro, I left for 30 minutes to go to the store. Chill, man. Lamau. I honestly have nothing more to add to that comment other than apparently this was also written by Montel Jordan. Ain't that a complete 180 from before?
Without you, girl, my life is incomplete.
As evidenced by my lengthy hiatus, making these 2000s lists is hard. Not only to have to listen to nearly 100 songs, but often have to do so multiple times over several days since my opinion can change on a daily basis. As a result, this next entry is one I thought was alright during the first listen, but once I actually paid attention to the lyrics, I just couldn't take it anymore.
Who do you think I am? Don't you know that he was my man?
If you haven't noticed, the year 2000 was a hotbed for R&B, so initially I just thought this was a passable R&B diss track about how Toni Braxton's ex isn't man enough. However, context is key here, and if you listen to the chorus, she's not actually singing to her ex. That's right, she's not directly singing to her ex-man, she's dissing him directly to his new wife. Not his girlfriend, his current wife. Normally I wouldn't mind a premise like this if the guy is secretly a giant sleazebag or a piece of shit human being, but the only evidence Toni provides in this entire song is that apparently he's not man enough for her. I don't know, maybe he's just a sensitive guy. Maybe he's matured a lot since then and you're just judging. Or maybe you're just goddamn jealous he found a better woman than you. Have you guys ever seen that BMW commercial where a dude breaks up with a geeky girl only to regret it years later because she turned out to be Brooklyn Decker? That's the vibe I get from this song. Toni Braxton comes off like the kind of person who's in such denial that her ex found a better woman that she's resorting to calling him a pussy because she has no smart retorts. There's the issue. You broke up with him. Who cares if he begged to stay back then? He's clearly over it now. Instead, you're the one who's still butthurt over it rather than the guy who supposedly isn't man enough. Ladies, if you were just married, would you listen to one of your man's exes brag about dumping him for allegedly not being man enough? I think I know who I'd side with.
But he's not man enough for me.
As you can tell so far, a lot of the most popular songs in 2000, whether they were country or R&B, were slow, easy listening ballads. Most of them ended up being forgettable, but as a result, 2000 didn't have many over-the-top insta-bad songs you'd expect to see on a worse list. I'm sure a lot of you wanted me to tear into some wacky, stupid shit when clicking on this video. Well, I'm finally here to tell you that your wait is over. Ugh, this just sounds repulsive and disgusting from the first note. I don't know if people actually liked this back when it came out, but as far as I can tell, this has aged very poorly. It has these glitzy bleeps and bloops smashed together that sounds less electronic and more ear-bleeding and annoying. Oh, and the lyrics are pretty lame as well. It's just preachy music brings people together crap that only sounds pretentious coming out of Madonna's mouth. Music does make the people come together. They come together when it's my music. I don't know if this was something people genuinely enjoyed at the time, but 20 years later, I can confirm that this is dated dance pop crap that just sounds more embarrassing than anything. The easy answer would be to say that Madonna was probably washed up by the turn of the millennium, but I'd argue against that because she ended up having a giant hit later in 2008 with Justin Timberlake that's one of the best hit songs of the decade. Granted, having a prime Timbaland as a producer can do wonders for anyone, but it only further proves that music by Madonna was less a decline in ability and more a regrettable experiment that didn't age well. To be thorough, I listened to one of her follow-up singles, Don't Tell Me, which would become a hit the next year, and that song was okay. Granted, it still had some weird production choices. I think it even has the same producer. Mirwais? I don't know French. Didn't he also produce her American Life album? Yeah, not a fan. Also, music by Madonna is terrible. The song, not her stuff in general. For the longest time, I thought this was going to be my number one. Even years ago, I knew I was going to do a top 10 worst of 2000 come 2020, and I was so ready to put this at the top of the list. But to my surprise, I actually managed to find something worse. With that being said though, I'm not giving a pass to this one at all. If you're a longtime viewer of mine, you should all know what this song is, and if there's any early 2000s rock act that I have no problem shitting on, it's the living embodiment of sludge, known as Creed.
Well, I just heard the news today.
Yep, it's this f***ing song again. Plenty of people love to say Nickelback was the worst rock band of the 2000s, but I don't get how they can say that when these guys exist. It should go without saying, but Scott Stapp has an absolutely dreadful and incomprehensible voice. Hell, it took me years to realize that this song was actually about becoming a father.
We're standing on. We created land.
By the sound of the music, I thought this was supposed to be some emo song about Christian angst or whatever. It doesn't sound uplifting or meaningful in any way. It just sounds like background noise for people who say they like rock but don't actually listen to it.
With arms wide open under the sunlight.
I'm serious, he sounds like he's intentionally singing bad just to troll us. Am I supposed to be awed by the symbolism of with arms wide open? I didn't even bring up that one song he made about sex.
This is not about sex.
Still hilarious. From this point on, I'm gonna do the rest of the 2000s decade in chronological order, so let's just say I'm not excited about the Creed songs I'm gonna have to cover over the next few years.
With arms wide open.
But before we get to number one, let's go over the dishonorable mentions that couldn't quite make the list. I don't know anything about the artist here, but listening to this song just makes me angry and irritated for some peculiar reason. Oh boy, a douchey R&B song about how your man can't love you right like I do even though I totally cheated on you in the past. Yeah, get your emotional singing out of here, I ain't buying it.
I need you like water, like breath, like rain.
I know I'm probably gonna piss some people off with this choice, but I just cannot stand Christian pop as a genre.
Can you take me higher?
Once again, Creed sucks and have always sucked. The only reason this didn't make the list proper is because it's the first Creed song I've heard that seems to have an actual hook.
All I wanna do is see you bounce with me, bounce with me.
I'll give credit that Lil Bow Wow really displayed his musical talent even at a young age. I just wish he was given a better written song. And now it's time to talk about the worst this year had to offer. When I saw who made this song, I already knew it was going to be bad, but I was not prepared for the sheer amount of suck I was about to hear. This artist has a history of saying offensive things, and this song is no exception. It's definitely offensive. In the sense that I'm utterly offended someone actually thought this sounded palatable for human ears. I may have given Sisqó some flack for trying to make a serious ballad, but his song sounds like f***ing Usher when compared to this pathetic attempt. I'm not even gonna waste time. Y'all wanna hear a somber ballad from Kid Rock?
I've been sitting here trying to find myself.
What the hell is with that auto-tune? Was he recording a dance track and the producer forgot to add the drum and bass?
I take too many pills that helps to ease the pain.
Ew. Ew! Do I really have to analyze the lyrics as well? It's already disgusting to listen to as music.
A lot of folks fuck with me. It's hard to hang out in crowds.
The song is about how life as a famous superstar is very tough. And look, as much as we like to shit on rich and famous people, I can acknowledge that fame is not kind to those who don't know how to deal with it. The problem is that I don't buy a single thing he's saying because he wrote the song before he became famous.
People don't know about the things I say and do.
Apparently, Kid Rock wrote this about a day after signing to Atlantic Records in '97 while he was in jail after a bar fight. Here's what he had to say about it in an interview. It wasn't hard to fucking hang out in a crowd when I wrote that song. No one knew who the fuck I was. I just knew what it was going to be like. Pretty good prediction. Nostrarakis. To add to that delightful insight, it would be one thing if he wrote a song like this 5 to 10 years into his mainstream career, but this was literally off his breakout album. How are we supposed to sympathize with him if he clearly doesn't view stardom as a burden? You can't expect me to find this genuine when this was made well before he gained any sustained success for me to care about him.
And when your walls go tumbling down.
Fun fact, VH1 once called this the 19th greatest power ballad of all time. No wonder VH1 isn't relevant today. It sounds like puke and it's the definition of insincere. Anyone who finds sympathy in this must have f***ed up real bad. Once again, I'm Mr. 96, and that concludes my top 10 worst hit songs of 2000. Don't worry, I'm not taking another 3 to 4 month hiatus. A new video will come on September 8th. Stay tuned for my 5th pop anniversary that day, and as for my best of 2000, my plan is October, but then again, we'll see about that. Anyways, the year of 2000 will conclude with my top 10 best hit songs of 2000 later this year. Pop songs may come in numbers, but there's only one. 96.
너의 그 말 그 잔인한 말 가슴 아픈